What is up, you guys? It's me, your girl, your Casey. How you doing today? Do not be afraid. Do not be alarmed. I am not lazy. Yes, I missed uploading for like 2 weeks in a row. Not my fault, kinda. I missed uploading a tag I was gonna do Tuesday because I had just gotten some highlights in, and I was kinda traumatized when I pulled my hair back, and it kinda looked like a depressed Eminem. So I didn't want the world to see me in that emotional state, so I skipped an upload. But then I had a Friday reads I wanted to get up. But the thing is, I hadn't read anything due to the aforementioned mental breakdown regarding my hair. I was reading ACOTAR 2 weeks ago, which I hadn't finished, and I was also reading on audiobook The Woman in the Window, and I was enjoying the book, but like 4 chapters in, I just got the feeling I was missing some visual clues listening it to audiobook instead of reading it in like a physical copy. So I stopped reading it and made a switch, picked up the physical copy. So I didn't upload my Friday reads because I hadn't read anything. But then last Friday, because I'm planning on putting this up Sunday, I was ready to go. I filmed everything. Then something terrible happened. My phone updated, which spelled horrible news for my channel. Because what I do is I film everything on my phone, then I link share it to my email account on my laptop, then I download that emailed file and I put it in Final Cut Pro, edit it, then send it to YouTube. But if the original video file is too big, my phone won't send it. This isn't a problem typically. All I have to do on my phone is go to video editor, split the video, save it, then it's smaller, and then I can send it. But then my phone updated. The phone updated, everything looked different and rearranged and smaller and just worse looking than the original version of the phone before. Why do updates always look horrible? So I filmed my video. It was 30 minutes of raw footage. So I'm like, okay, that's a little big. Let me split the video. And then my phone had the gall to tell me that the video was too big to make small. I don't understand, stupid. So now I had this amazing, beautiful Friday Reads episode that I couldn't upload, and it forced me not to upload last Friday. And that is my life right now. But I'm catching up now because I have some thoughts and opinions that you guys need to know about, especially regarding ACOTAR. You guys know ACOTAR. A Court of Thorns and Roses. I keep saying Thrones and Roses. This ain't no Game of Thrones parody. When I first discovered Booktube, not like when I joined Booktube, but when I was first like, oh, people actually make this content on YouTube? The books everybody were talking about at the time were A Handbook for Mortals, Carve the Mark by Veronica Roth, that other Booktuber book that apparently was very bad, and also I think the third book had just came out in the A Court of Thorns and Roses trilogy. Actually, I think there's like 4 books now. Yeah, there's 4 books now. It was always so popular, but it was always introduced to me as that fairy smutty book. Very smutty, yes. And I had just finished reading A Touch of Darkness, which was just sex scene after sex scene with no purpose behind it. So I was like, why did I read this book? I know it's gonna be too romantic for me. I don't like romance, but FOMO, my bro, FOMO. So I read it, and I actually like this book. I gave it 4 out of 5. This is a fairy tale retelling of Beauty and the Beast. What we have here is a girl named Feyre. Yes, her name has the word Fae in it, and this book's all about Fae, and it's very foreshadowy, not really subtle, now I'm thinking about it. But I like this girl in the beginning. In the land of A Court of Thorns and Roses, before even our Lady Feyre was born, there was a great and terrible war between the fairies and the humans. You know, fairies, they're great and powerful, they're beating everybody up, but then the humans discover that the fairies have a weakness to ash. No, not these ashes. Ash like the tree. So they make some arrows out of it, they start shooting all these fairies up, and you know, they're putting up a good fight. But you know, everybody is still dying. So the fairies and the humans, they came together and they're like, let's make a treaty. They made a treaty. The fairies have to stay on their side of the world. The humans get this little tiny blot of the world. And it's not looking good in that piece of the world. It's a lot of winter and a lot of starvation. Times are hard, especially for Feyre's family. We got Feyre, the youngest, her 2 awful sisters. One is just so ditzy, she doesn't know that, hey, we're like a missed meal away from dying from starvation, my love. The other one, who I think is the oldest, is just so... She reminds me of Pearl from Cinder, the Lunar Chronicles, and I hated Pearl so much. She's just mean and useless. You can be mean, but if you're helpful in the situation, I will tolerate you. But this is just meanness that accomplishes nothing. Oh, and then we got the dad, who is nice, but accomplishes nothing, which is just as bad. He used to be a very, you know, good merchant. He was making the moolah. Well, he made He sent some ships into an ocean that they should not have been in. The ships all crashed. Probably all the sailors got eaten by sea monsters. Your typical working environment hazards. And while all of his goods he was trying to sell was on the ship, so now all these debt collectors that came to his house, they busted his kneecaps. Now Pharaoh's family has nothing and their dad has a bum leg. And he just sits there in a depressed corner, whittling wooden sculptures. So things are tense. Pharaoh has stepped up. She's like, I'm gonna support this family now. And the rest of her family treats her like she's just a pocket of air with like little dust motes floating through it. She is literally keeping all these people alive and they don't thank her once. I liked Feyre in the beginning. I still kinda like Feyre by the end of ACOTAR, because in the beginning she was so set on survival. She had her mind made, she was tough, she was good in a fight. This girl went out into the fairy woods with just 3 arrows and she's like, hey, I'm gonna kill whatever I see and I'm gonna eat it, which gets her into trouble later on because she's hunting a deer. Well, guess what else is hunting a deer? A big monster wolf. So Feyre finds the deer, but it's already being eaten by the big monster wolf. Feyre's lurking behind a bush with like her arrow drawn, her ash arrow, because ash kills fairies. And she's like, this gigantically large wolf with crazy yellow eyes. I think it could be a fairy in disguise, but I'm also hecka hungry. So she shoots it and she skins it. Yeah, that made some fairies mad. It was an actual fairy under that wolf skin. So when she gets back home, her accident, her homicide, it brings down the wrath of the Lord of the Fairies, like one of the lords. You know, it's a typical fairy book. We got like a billion courts, spring court, summer court. I don't even remember what court this guy is in charge of, but this fairy lord, he busts through the door in this like animal form. He's like wolfish with like a feline face and he has like stag antlers, a mishmash of just rage. He sees Feyre and he's like, hey girl, you killed my best friend. Take your earrings off. Put up your dupes. We're gonna trade blows. And I'ma kill you. Your life is mine. Because that's what the treaty says. You kill a fairy, the human's life is then forfeit. Fairy's like, hey, yo, no, there must be another way. And Mr. Monster Fairy's like, well, it doesn't say, the treaty, that I actually have to kill you. It just says that your life belongs to me now. So here is the dealio. You can either die by my fist going through your esophagus, or you can just come with me to my house. No, wait. I have some nice wines you can sample. So rather than be disemboweled in front of her family, Feyre goes to the cool fairy house. Oh, and guess what? The monster fairy, the big beast that just wrecked her whole cabin, turns out he's a hot, very human-looking fairy underneath all that hair. His name's Tamlin, and he's hunky, and I love him. Very sweet, very understanding. 10 out of 10 for good male lead. Debonair with a bit of mystery. So fairy Tamlin guy does take Feyre away to the fairy kingdom. And my friend, this was a strong start to the story. I liked the writing, the atmosphere. I really liked our female lead. And again, let me remind you, I did enjoy this book, but it gets very slow in the middle part. Oh, we got plot going on, but no one takes the time to explain to us the plot. We hear whispers about this blight creeping across the fairylands. We keep hearing about this mysterious she who seems to be causing as much or even more problems than the blight itself. And Feyre, she like hears these fairies whispering about all the troubles that are beseeching their lands. And she's like, hey, should I be concerned? What's going on here? And no one takes a second to explain anything to Feyre. And because no one is explaining anything to Feyre, no one is explaining anything to us. Like, where is this story going? Until like 60 or 70% into the book. There's a good reason why, and you learn why at the end of the book, why no one explains anything to Feyre. I understand and partially forgive, but for a good middle chunk of the book, it's literally going to party A. Oh, we're gonna have a fire festival. Not a fire festival, that was a disaster. But they made a big bonfire. It was lit. I made an accidental pun, I'm sorry. Oh, we're also gonna go to a solstice party. We're gonna dance around and drink wines and kiss cute babes. It's that. Every now and then we'll get like a random decapitated head like thrown at Tamlin's door, like, here you go, you suck as a fairy lord. Which spiced it up a little bit. Still, it was a very laggy, slow middle. The ending was really cool though. I can't tell you about the ending. There was one thing about the ending. I'll tell you one thing. Eventually, Feyre has to do these 3 trials. 1, 2, 3. First trial was cool. I loved it. Second trial, it was funny in a really morbid way because it was so simple to solve, but Feyre could not solve it because of a character flaw with her. But it was also just like a really quick trial. So I'm like, felt like it could have been stretched out longer somehow, or maybe it could have been as active emotive and physical as the first trial, but it was still nice. The third trial was actually pretty heartbreaking, and it made me feel emotions. No book has permission to do that with me besides Eldest. I feel like I'm cheating on him. But there is also a riddle that has to be solved in this book, and the riddle is so stupid. Oh my gosh. Anyone, you, Gollum, Swiper the Fox, anyone could have solved this riddle, but Feyre just couldn't. And it is the dumbest thing ever. Last thing I'm going to mention about this book is Feyre herself. Like I said, she was a great character, but you know, she gets to spend more time with the fairy lord Tamlin, and he starts to like chisel down some of the walls she's thrown up around herself because she had to like harden herself to survive. Respectable and understandable. Feyre, before her father's merchant business went out of business, she loved painting. She loved observing the beauty of the outside world. The little silent, breathtaking pictures that you could like interpret into your own sense of beauty. Yes. But because she's had to live like a hard hunter lifestyle, she doesn't allow herself to think about beauty anymore because she's so set on survival and protecting her family. The family doesn't pay any attention to her. But the longer she stays with Tamlin and the fairies, she starts to like let down her walls. But the more her walls are coming down, the easier it is for stupidity to jump over those walls. Our girl went from being reasonable to being stupid and had as much in her head as a dandelion. Besides Kafka on the Shore, I think this is the only other book I've read with the character just like degenerated. No, what's the word? Degraded? No, downgraded. Downgraded the further you read. Luckily for this book, I still liked Feyre by the end of it, but she was still much better at the beginning. Even though she learned valuable lessons through the moral of the story, I still prefer the hardened, isolated Feyre over the Feyre she became by the end of the book. But I am also a huge sucker for fairy books because I love just the magic, the creatures, and just the world building involved with them. So it's really hard for me not to ever like a fairy book. Oh, and there was romance in this book, but not enough to make me cringe, like in A Touch of Darkness. It was just the right amount. The chemistry and relationship built up between Tamlin and Feyre was actually believable. One more thing, it did have introduced one of my least favorite tropes, but I got over it. It was 4 out of 5 stars. Give it a read. I have the sequel on hold at my library, and I'm going to pick it up soon, so I'm actually excited to see what's going to happen, because there was a little thing at the end of this book that I'm like, ooh, the love triangle drama is about to be fire. You guys know, back in December, I finished reading One of Us is Lying, and I loved that book. It beat all the odds, my bros, because I hate books with high school characters. They're so honestly painful for me to read because it's like all these high schoolers are just caricatures and stereotypes of high schoolers. It's all that gossip prom boy cheerleader drama, and it's so vapid, shallow, and just so boring. But One of Us is Lying, which is set in a high school, it actually, oh my gosh, it gave its characters. Blew my freaking mind. I gave it a 5 stars, even though I guessed who did it in like that. It was still a very fun read to read. One of Us is Lying, the first book, is about this kid named Simon. Well, Simon dies in detention. It's not a spoiler. Happens first chapter and it's on the summary. He dies in detention, and in detention there's 4 other students. We got the smart girl, the popular guy, and like the troublemaker guy. You know, the Breakfast Club stereotypes. And each of these kids kind of have a motive and reason for wanting Simon to be dead. So they're suspects in his murder. And so this unlikely band of kind of misfits who would never interact with each other like organically, they come together to solve what happened to Simon. But can they actually trust each other? Because one of them could be lying. That book, loved it, ended great. Then apparently it got a sequel. Well, not apparently, I read it. I know it had a sequel. One of Us is Next is the sequel to One of Us is Lying. One of you bozos warned me in my review of One of Us is Lying that One of Us is Next is nowhere as good. You were right. I should have listened. So the events of One of Us is Lying all wrapped up in a nice pretty bow. Great. All of the people involved in the first book, well, they were seniors, they graduated, so now we have a new cast of characters for One of Us is Next. Y'all ever get like a sneeze that just like refuses to actually sneeze? That's what's happening right now, and it feels like my mind's exploding. Instead of the 4-person cast in One of Us is Lying, One of Us is Next has 3 people. We have Maeve. My brain keeps calling her Maeve, but I guess it's Maeve. But it's my brain. I can read it however I want. Maeve, maybe. She is the sister of one of the original characters, Bronwyn, the smart girl stereotype. She was my favorite side character in the first book, so I was glad to read from her point of view in the second book, because she's got some things going on. We also have Knox, who has some history with Maeve. He's, it felt like he was a rehashing of Cooper's character, family drama-wise, but instead of Cooper being the jock and the sociable, likable type, Knox is just awkward and clumsy, and that's it. But he's not nearly as bad as our third and final main character, Phoebe. I got nothing from Phoebe's character. Like, this book opens up with, well, first, the events happen in the first book. The main reason Simon was very disliked in the first book is because he had this, gossip app, which would go on to ruin a lot of people's lives in Bayview High School. Well, he's dead, so in One of Us is Next, there are copycat apps that are just popping up everywhere. The most recent one is a Truth or Dare game, and Phoebe is the first one to be contacted for it. She gets a message from an unknown texter, and it says, "Hey girl, how you doing? You got two options. You pick Truth or Dare. You either do a dare I give you, or I'm gonna reveal an awful truth about you to everyone." Phoebe, because she's the first person to get this text, she just ignores it. And after her 24-hour time limit is up, her secret gets posted everywhere. And yeah, the drama starts happening. And the game starts getting momentum because all the high schoolers are like, "Oh, I don't want my secrets getting out. Yeah, give me the dare." The only thing that I can honestly remember from Phoebe's personality is that she just likes to hook up with people. Like, that's literally it. And it's also the thing that primarily gets her into trouble. Well, technically some beer got her into trouble. Don't drink, people. Drink kombucha. Gut health and alcohol. Look at me. I drink that stuff every day and I'm glowing with health. And also because of this new ring light. Ain't it swanky? Yeah, Phoebe, she's just the girl that sleeps around. That's literally all of her character, and I feel sad. Like, I wish you had more, girl, but that's literally it. So Phoebe's like, "Oh, my secret got out. Oh, dang." Knox and Maeve don't care, because they're not friends with Phoebe, but they got their own drama going on. I won't tell you Maeve's, because it's kind of shocking when you hear what's going on with her. And that's really one of the main only points of tension in this book, so you'll be surprised by that. But Knox, he has an internship with Until Proven, which is that law firm that really helped out the Simon case in the first book. And while Knox is doing his internship, we keep hearing about this case being mentioned, where this police officer, he helped cover up crimes for 17 years or something like that. Either he covered up crimes for 17 years or he covered up 17 crimes. 17 is the main number here. Very important. But kinda. It is kinda important, because I kept noticing how, numerous this case, which is just shoved off to the sidelines, is still mentioned. And I'm like, is this book going to be resolved by something that just keeps getting mentioned off to the side, but barely we're paying any attention to it because it's barely being brought up, and it doesn't seem like it's actually important, but then all of a sudden it's going to be really important to the finale? Yes. While the first book had a believable, crime, motives, and villain that I put together reasonably, because there were clues, the second book's mystery, who's running the app, who's giving death threats to our guy Eli, the lawyer who works at Until Proven, who's doing the shady stuff to Phoebe, and who was responsible for one of the deaths at the high school, Bayview. It is so outlandish, and it's impossible to guess, because it's just not a good mystery. I'm going to talk about spoilers for this book, but for non-spoilery people, again, I really like it in a thriller when we know and have trusted the villain who has now turned against us, because that's a good twist. I want to be betrayed, but in this book, I couldn't get betrayed because we didn't know or care for the villain. The characters weren't nearly as good. Even the dialogue and the banter, which I thought was natural for high school people to talk in the first book. No, in this one just felt like, again, a parody, a stereotype, a caricature of how a 30-year-old, a 35-year-old would think modern teenagers talk like. Characters weren't nearly as likable. Some of the characters from the first book make a little appearance, but it felt like fan service in a way. Just oh, there's character A from the first book. I loved reading about them. Oh, and now they're gone. Just go and read the first book again. But I gotta talk about spoilers now, because I just gotta vent. I hated the villain reveal, because we didn't know the villain. He didn't exist in our minds for the longest time. We weren't made aware of his existence before the bomb threat happened. But just like the first book, and spoilers again for first book and second book, Simon was the one who concocted this whole scheme, but he had Jake's help. I predicted Simon, but I didn't expect Jake. However, in One of Us is Next, again, we have like a tag teaming duo of villainy. We have this Jared kid who just popped up out of nowhere, and we also have Emma. Like, Jared is Simon and Emma is Jake. Emma being Phoebe's sister, remember? I mean, it was pretty obvious as soon as like Emma began like heavily drinking that she was somehow involved with this, and it was guilt making her drink. So that warned me like early on. But again, Jared, where the heck did he come from? I know where he came from, but it's just like so convoluted that it's not pleasurable as a reveal. I had to take like screenshots of like the last 20 pages just so I can look back and be like, so is this really how it's ending? This is our villain? Yeah, so we got Phoebe and we have, remember Brandon? Brandon is the kid who fell off the construction roof and he died. He's also the guy that Phoebe was hooking up with. We learn later on that Brandon is the kid who hopped up on a forklift which caused an accident which killed Phoebe's dad. Do you think Brandon like knew he was dating the girl whose father he killed? How did he not know? Well, apparently Brandon also has a brother, Jared. Jared, for some reason, agrees to kill or at least brutally maim his brother, Brandon, because Emma, who is using Phoebe's name on a revenge forum, she asks Jared to do it to get back at Phoebe for sleeping with her ex-boyfriend. I'm already like confused. This is a lot of names to remember, people. I'm honestly impressed I remember this. Yeah, so Jared's like, yeah girl, I'll kill my brother, but you gotta do something for me. Jared is somehow, and I don't remember this actually, he is somehow either tied to or related to the cop that until proven is like trying to put in jail. And so Jared wants revenge on Eli, the lawyer who is handling the whole cop case. Emma, her mom, this is so ridiculous, her mom is the wedding planner for Eli's upcoming wedding. So Emma's like, oh yeah, here's some dates where Eli's gonna be in a couple of weeks. You can go blow him up with a bomb. Just kill or maim Brandon for me. So that happens. Or, wait, I forgot. Important stuff here. They were just talking about this. Like, oh, what if we kill Brandon? What if you kill Eli? But Emma, she chickened out. She stopped texting Jared. However, this I did predict. And it's so dumb that I predicted it. Owen, I knew this kid was somehow involved with this website thing. The truth or dare game. Because the second we're introduced to him, he's a socially awkward, kind of naive, but still a really sweet kid. He kind of reminded me of my brother. And if there's one person who's going to kill me on this earth, it's my brother. And he's introduced immediately as a tech genius, which spells bad news in this universe. So remember in my Survive the Night video, I told you when I read thrillers, I automatically make a dumb theory. And if the book actually uses the dumb theory, it is a very bad thriller. Owen being involved was my dumb theory. But then at the end of the book, yeah, it's revealed that this was actually really sweet in a morbid way because it killed a man. But Brandon, kinda assaulted, not kinda, he assaulted his sister. Brandon went after Phoebe. Little Owen was actually watching. And so he's like, I'm gonna get some revenge. So I feel like this is like one of these Russian dolls in the worst possible way. He masquerades as Emma, who was masquerading as Phoebe. He logs online and he talks to Jared online. He's like, oh, remember that plan we had to kill Brandon? Let's do it. How did Owen actually know Emma was doing this? I don't remember. But yeah, Owen's like, go on with the game, good man, Jared. Go on. Jared causes the construction accident to happen. It wasn't originally planned for Brandon to die, but it happened anyways. Owen was like, oh, I didn't actually want him to die. Oh no, oh no. So he stops talking to Jared. Jared gets mad because Emma, Phoebe, Owen isn't texting him. So he's like, oh, if you're not going to help me anymore, I'm just going to kill Eli all by myself. Tell him, girl. And so that's how like the big conclusion happens. Jared throws a bomb underneath the restaurant where Eli and the wedding party and like all the surviving characters in the first book are eating. Knox saves the day, proving that he had some point of existing in this book. And then the very last chapter is revealing that Owen did actually kind of pull the metaphorical trigger in the chain of events that ended up killing Brandon and setting off this entire bomb threat. And also the two sisters, Emma and Phoebe, silently agreeing never to let anyone know Owen had any involvement in it, which is respectable. Good sister move. Maybe not respectable, kind of criminal actually, but it's also stealing the ending from a very popular Ruth Ware book. I won't spoil which book, but yeah, Ruth Ware already did that ending, my friend. So that's my rant. Again, sorry this update was a little late. It's totally Samsung's fault. Let's burn it down. Currently, I'm reading Carrie by Stephen King. I'm hating it because it's, again, high school drama. I'm also reading the physical version of The Woman in the Window. And when I'm driving and working out, I'm listening to The House in the Cerulean Sea. I really liked Under the Whispering Door, the author's other book, so I'm excited to see if this one's just as good. I also really want to do a little something special for ACOTAR, like another review for it, but with a little something special added to it. I gotta get the right software for it. It's probably gonna look like crap at the end result, but it's my crap. I'll be proud of it. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, stay reading, my bros.